This Infrastructure and Environment Committee meeting on Wednesday the 3rd of July. I'd just like to let everybody know that this meeting is being live streamed, so welcome to those that are joining us online. Just ask councillors to please turn off their mobile phones, and the intention is to have a break at around 11. We'll see how the business goes this morning, and if necessary a lunch break at 1. I'd just like to please open the meeting with a karakia. I'd just like to ask Councillor Kai Fong if she's able to do that for us.
Morena koutou, kia noi tātou, tūtaua mai runga, tūtaua mai raro, tūtaua mai roto, tūtaua mai waho, kia tau ai te maurutū, te mauru ora ki te katoa, haumi e hui. Kia ora.
Thank you, Councillor Kai Fong. I'd like to move on to the apologies. I have one apology from Councillor Kiriopa for lateness. She may be able to join us later. She's with Minister Simon Watts at the moment. Is there any other apologies? Councillor Wang?
Thank you, Madam Chair. Just in case this meeting runs past 2 p.m, potentially, hopefully not, but potentially early departure to host Minister Watts later on. Thank you. Thank you,
Councillor Wang. So with those two apologies, I'd like to ask for a move and a seconder that apologies be accepted, please. That's Mayor Tapsell and Councillor Waru. All those in favour, please say aye. Aye. Against? That is carried. Thank you. Are there any declarations of interest this morning? There appears to be none. Are there any urgent items that are not on the agenda or any minor matters? Councillor Lee.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Earlier this week I submitted a notice of motion to Council, which is that going to be dealt with today?
Councillor Lee, you received, and so did the rest of the elected members, received an assessment of the notice of motion, and it was declined to be seen at this meeting. Is there any other matters you'd like to discuss?
Yes, I am aware I have received that letter, so in the interests of openness and transparency, I think the public would be interested in knowing the reasons that it was declined to be accepted. Okay,
and it's probably not an urgent item, but I will address it since it would, like you say, it might be in the public interest. The motion that you proposed seeks to seeks to actually oppose a decision that the Council made on Wednesday the 26th of June. So what you proposed in your notice of motion was that we pause on the fluoridation of water. The decision on Wednesday in Council was to enter into a funding contract, and it was also to award the contract for the capital works of the fluoridation equipment. So your motion actually goes against those decisions. If you, excuse me, the decision of the assessment of the notice of motion also said there are other avenues if a decision is to be revoked or amended, and those are in the decision that was presented to you.
Point of order.
What's your point of order?
Misrepresentation. The notice of motion sought to pause the implementation of fluoride, including letting out contracts for the purchase of fluoridation equipment until further approval of the elected members. Pausing a previous decision is quite different from attempting to revoke a decision. So it's certainly not immediately obvious to me how requesting a pause is in any way attempting to revoke an earlier decision. Perhaps you could explain.
And it was my opinion and the advice of the governance team that it was actually a direct negative to what we'd actually decided, and the contract has already been signed. I'll just see if there's anything that needs to be added on behalf of the CE in this respect. Anything you want to add on?
Thank you. Through the Chair, I think the primary issue on the notice of motion was also that it didn't meet the timeframes allowed for to be received at this meeting.
Yes, in that respect, I believe last week, Andrew, we met and we talked about this potential notice of motion, which was your recommendation. I did work with the chair over the weekend on this notice of motion.
Excuse me, Councillor Lee.
Hang on, I haven't finished.
No, point of order myself.
What's your point of order?
When the chair speaks, you actually stop speaking, Councillor Lee. That's my point of order. I did not partake in this particular notice of motion, for the first point. And the second point is that there are very clear reasons here that state why the notice of motion wasn't accepted. And I think that we just need to move on. There is also mentioned in there how to go about the steps you need to take if you wanted to do anything different. And so I would just ask that if you want to make another notice of motion, there are pathways for you to do that, but this has been declined on those reasons.
So just a point of clarity, I do accept that the notice of motion was submitted outside of the 5 working days, and the advice that I got from the Chief Executive, and I believe we've had a precedent for this earlier this term, and perhaps my colleagues can help me out with this. We have actually dealt with a notice of motion outside of the 5 working day limit previously, have we not? And certainly that would be a matter of the Chair's discretion, is it not?
Thank you for reminding me of my discretion, Councillor Lee. You're right, the Chair does have discretion on matters such as this. I could have made a choice using discretion about the timing, yes, but when it comes to the actual changing of a motion that has already been set by Council on Wednesday, I don't see that I can do that. So I can't use my discretion in that respect. So 2 separate issues there that you've raised, and I've told you why I decided on the second. I'd actually would just like to move on. Councillor Patterson, do you have something related to this?
Just a point of clarity, if I can, Madam Chair. In the interest of maintaining our adherence to our priorities, which is authentic engagement, and also the Ombudsman's suggestions about transparency, I just have a question about this. This is the first time I've ever seen a notice of motion assessment, so where did it come from? I mean, we've been here nearly 20 months, never seen one. And second question, is this document considered confidential?
Which document are you referring to, please?
The notice of motion assessment.
Oh, thank you. I'll let Una answer that question for you.
Thank you. Through you, Madam Chair, the notice of motion assessment isn't anything new. Every time a notice of motion comes through where there is concern that they don't meet the requirements, an assessment is undertaken and is provided to the Chair. The Chair then either accepts or doesn't the advice that has been provided. If the notice of motion is accepted, it makes it onto the agenda. If the notice of motion is not accepted, which in this case it wasn't, it doesn't make it onto the agenda. It is a procedural piece of work and it does determine whether the notice of motion is on the agenda or not. Therefore, there is no requirement for the notice of motion assessment to be made public. However, there's no reason for it to be kept confidential, and it could be released if this council so wishes it to be.
Thank you.
Thank you. I'd just like now to move on and ask if there's any other urgent items, or yes, Councillor O'Brien.
Thank you, Madam Chair, and through the Chair. Madam Chair, could I just ask for an action point to be recorded unless it's felt it should be addressed today? I've heard from a number of particularly rural residents around water meters that there seems to be issues, and some have received letters. I'm not asking for us to address it today, but could I ask for either the full council meeting later this month or this committee's next month meeting for us to have a report on the causes, the actions, and where those issues lie? Thank you.
Thank you for your query. I have had those questions also. I believe it's a good action point to take away from this meeting, and we'll prepare something for the councillors to have on that. Thank you.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Happy with that. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other urgent items, councillors? There appear to be none. So we'll move on to item 5.1, which is the minutes of the Infrastructure and Environment Committee held on the 5th of June 2024. Could I ask for a move and a seconder that the minutes of the Infrastructure and Environment Committee held on the 5th of June be confirmed as a true and correct record, please? That's Councillor Kai Fong, seconded by Councillor Wang. All those in favour, please say aye. Actually, were there any matters of correction? There appear to be none. Thank you, that was carried. Moving on now to item number 6.1. Te Whare Taonga Aotearoa, the Rotorua Museum Strengthening and Restoration Project update. We have a report today from Stuart Brown. Welcome, Stuart, and welcome, Thomas. I'll ask you to lead us through your presentation. Thank you. Welcome.
Thank you, Madam Chair, and good morning, councillors. This will be the first of many updates to this committee with regards to the progress on the museum project. We're going to traverse a couple of topics, but what we've got is a bit of a presentation that just at a very high level will show you what work will take place in what quarter of the year and what the next 2.5 years will look like. The intent of that is to provide some transparency to not only yourself but also the public with regards to the works that will be undertaken and what is expected to be seen, but also with that transparency comes accountability with regards to what is being achieved and what hasn't been achieved. And next month we'll have a standing item with regards to a project update of the museum as well, with regards to progress against budget, risks and those sorts of elements, and that'll just be an ongoing item. Before I hand over to Stuart, we have done a little bit of a piece of work around, I guess, the program mobilisation, because while we've talked about the seismic strengthening, there's actually 3 streams of work that are just being brought together. There's always sorry, the most obvious big one is the seismic strengthening component in that project, but in addition to that is the exhibition. And hopefully we'll have a date with you shortly with regards to Workshop E coming to present to you around the exhibition and where that is at and how that weaves into the building, and then also the operational delivery or focus with regards to when the project is completed around the operational delivery of that. And how many parts of council and also contractors will all come together to bring those 3 elements together, and we'll provide you some more detail of that into the future as well. But in saying that, happy to hand over to Stuart and walk you through the remainder of the presentation.
Morena koutou. Firstly, it was really exciting yesterday that we finally got to the point of starting the museum after close to 7.5 years since closure. So a really special morning and a significant milestone for the project yesterday. So over the last few weeks, everyone would have noticed that Watson Hughes, our contractor, have been on site. So they've been doing pre-site establishment work. So there's identifying in-ground services. They've done some heritage protection work, temporary fire alarm systems, all these sorts of things to enable the project to get underway. Before we could hand over the site to Watson Hughes, Council needed to complete a few things. That was the asbestos removal from the ground, the decant of the remaining fixtures and fittings from the old exhibition from the museum, pruning of the protected Pohutukawa trees to allow scaffolding access to the site, and then just confirming we've got access for the new geothermal pipe pathway for the new bores that need to be installed in the coming months. So I'm really here to give you an update of what you're likely to see, particularly over this, as Thomas said, over the next couple of months. So as you can see, the building has been broken up into to 6 zones, zones 1 through to 6. 1 being the 2011 extension, zone 2 through to 5 are the 1908 heritage build, and then finally in zone 6 was the 2008 extension. The earthquake strengthening sequencing for this building is starting in zones 4, 5, 6, which involve at the external envelope, scaffolding and wrapping of those sections, where we'll do the roof strengthening, external restoration and watertightness. At the same time, they will be starting at the opposite end with the in-building and groundworks for seismic strengthening. So you might ask why we're doing work in Zone 1, and that is literally because the dormer window on the on the right-hand side or nearest to Zone 2 is actually that facade on the left-hand wall is actually original heritage built, and it needs to be reconnected to the existing structure in a slightly different way as it was in 2011 to bring our MBS level up to 80%. At the same time that work, they will also start work in Zone 2A, which was the new lift access that provides access to the mud bath basement and to the mezzanine floor, and that work will get underway in the same period. Next, what we'll see through till the end of the year is we'll obviously continue to see that work underway in zones 4, 5, 6. The lift work will also continue on with demolition of the floor basement, etc. And then the seismic upgrade work continues in Zone 1. And then we begin the external envelope work on the main atrium. And so towards the end of the year, you're likely to see that be scaffolded and wrapped as well. And for the project, that's the most significant part for us, where the most earthquake strengthening work needs to be done in both underpinning and the shear walls and the carbon fibre mesh that we've been talking about. Early next year, we see the install of the diaphragm complete, and you'll see the wrap removed. The scaffolding won't come down immediately, and that is simply because those turrets will need to be, which would have been craned off, will need to be craned on, some refix and some finishing work. Work continues in Zone 3, and the same in Zone 2, and the seismic upgrade in Zone 1, where we've got the least amount of work will be completed at that point. Mid to late next year, work continues. So we begin the seismic upgrade in Zone 2, with that work due to be completed by the end of the year, and then we remove this scaffolding and wrap and complete the external restoration and watertightness in that area. And then the same in the north wing galleries 4, 5, 6, that we the scaffolding will come down, and at that point we'll be unveiling that part externally will be complete. January to July 2026 is where we really start to wrap up all the seismic work. So the seismic work would have been completed for most of the zones, except for 4 and 5. Zone 6 doesn't require any seismic upgrade because it was 2008 build. It's more to do with how it's connected to the original heritage build in Zone 5. We start fit out at that point, so starting early January with the southern galleries. So this is where our core exhibition space is, as well as Zone 2. And then we continue on working down the building with fit out all the way through until we complete right down to Zone 6 and commit seismic upgrade in Zones 4 and 5. And then really the last part of 26, the building will be completed in its earthquake seismic strengthening, building structure completed per a funding agreement at 80% MBS, ground at 70%. Our internal envelope will be completed, restored and watertight. We'll have a new roof. The internal fit out will be complete and will be exhibition ready for installation. And during that last part of that August through to September is the commissioning of all our systems, including high-vac scrubbed air systems, will be commissioned and tested. So by the end of October 26, the museum will be ready for install of exhibitions. And that's really just a really quick overview of what's going to happen in over these next couple of months. So while it sounds really brief, it's a significant piece of work that needs to happen. I'm happy to take any questions.
Thank you, Stuart. It is a significant piece of work, and it's really great to see it all laid out in front of us. And is there anything that you wanted to add to that, Thomas, with regards to reporting or anything?
No, we're just happy to take any questions the members may have.
Thank you. Councillor Lee.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Thank you for your report, Stuart. Obviously, getting to know you a little bit, you've got an incredible knowledge of this beast of a building that we all love and adore. Many people in the community have wondered why it's taken council so long to get to this point where we're actually fixing it. Where do you think we're at now compared to where we were, I don't know, 2016, 2017? Are you feeling good about the plans that we have for fixing this building?
Councillor, it's probably not a question that's specifically related to the presentation that was in front of us. It's a little bit difficult to answer, I think, unless you want to answer that, Stuart. I think probably just, yeah, it's not really relevant to the specific presentation we've just had around how the build's going to roll out. Have you got anything specific to how this presentation?
Oh, I thought the public would have been most interested to know that, Madam Chair, but okay, as you wish.
Thank you, Councillor Lee. I will actually just say that we have had a significant amount of public workshops where all of this work was laid out right from the beginning, right from the work that was done on the seismic testing and strengthening and all those kind of options that the architects and designers put together for us. So that is all available in the public realm. Is there any other questions? Councillor Maxwell.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Thanks, Brownie, for the update. Terrific. I see a smile on your face now, and no, it's exciting. We've started. Can I just ask about 4, 5 and 6? That's more of the newer part that had been added. I know the Energy Trust that put a lot in there. And it says there the new tiles will be taken off. Are they, what's going to happen with the tiles that are there? That's fairly new anyway, but just curious where they go.
So, Councillor, zones 4 and 5 are actually heritage build, so that's the north wing. Zones 1 and 2 with a recent extension, and zone 6 was 2008.
Assess how the project is tracking along, and if there are areas of concern, how those filter up. Thank you.
Yep. So the Project Management Office, which is part of where the risk sits, is currently working with Stuart and the project managers and everyone with regards to having a good overview of the work program and understanding where the risk sits. And in our ongoing monthly reporting to you, that team, the project management team, and in particular Elrond, will be involved in that reporting as well, and particularly around understanding the risks and the assessments and the mitigations. So they'll have quite regular involvement going forward on a monthly, at least a monthly basis, if not more.
Thank you. Sorry, one quick supplementary. So could I ask, so do they, sorry, for want of a better word, do they okay these reports before they come to us? I know they're involved, but if there's areas of, say, concern they have, how do those get addressed?
First, I guess we've got a project steering group as well. So first of all, if there are any major issues that need to be resolved, then that's that forum where they're aired and discussed and resolved. But it is every intention going forward with regards to ongoing reporting going forward to be as transparent as possible to the public. And so the updates on a monthly update, my expectation is, unless there's something commercially sensitive which we can't disclose because we're working through, that we're very open and transparent about the progress of this build and the risks and the mitigations that are in place.
Thank you, Thomas. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you. I have a question from Mayor Tapsell.
Thank you. In the first slide around program mobilisation, you just do mention in there around funding and maintenance and developing strategies for funding acquisition, specifically relating to the exhibition. So while it's really pleasing that we're able to start works on the redevelopment, we of course still have a large gap that we need to fill in terms of funding for the exhibition. And so just a question regarding that on how the timeframes of that expect to play out to make sure that that is all accounted for and ready to go by the time we open up the building.
So, as you'd be aware, Your Worship, the Centennial Trust had a meeting on Monday this week to look at funding opportunities and funding strategies, which we are currently working on. In terms of the critical pathway for to have an exhibition ready to be in place, on the completion of the construction phase and earthquake strengthening of the building. We're pretty much on critical path for that now. The current plan, providing we can find sufficient funding quickly enough, would be the museum would open mid to late 2027. We will be coming to council with the concept design for the exhibition and some options that if we couldn't find funding, what are the other options we could possibly do? So, for instance, short-term exhibitions could be part of that, those options, or delay a part of the building to be opening to the public. Those sorts of things will put for council to decide. Yeah.
Thank you, Stuart.
And just one final question, just regarding the education programs. So I know that our team have fortunately been able to still continue these. Will that also continue business as usual as the building is going through its redevelopment?
Yes, the work in the education continues on. They'll also be working, once the new exhibitions are confirmed, on new programs as we integrate them back into the building when it reopens. But I think this year it's 6,500 kids through the classroom, so still very, very active.
Thank you, Stuart, for your answers. Councillor Brown and then Councillor Patterson.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Actually, Councillor O'Brien has addressed my question, so I'm happy at this stage. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Patterson.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Thanks very much for your report, and I really enjoyed the walk around through the museum the other day. It was good to see it again for the second time and see how progress is being made, and I think we saw a similar presentation on your hand hold out that you were taking us through. It was really good to see it actually in person. Just a question going back to Mayor Tapsell's question regarding the design of the exhibition and the whole fit out. I understand Carl Leonard has been working with the design process from an iwi perspective. How's that all fleshing out? Are we going to when would we see that finished design, roughly?
The concept design is about 95% complete at the moment, so we're expecting to come to council with a short workshop shortly to walk you through the process with that. Yes, Carl Leonard has definitely been involved, as well as the museum team been taking Tonga back to Marae, really asking iwi what do they want from their museum, and they're coming from a Te Arawa lens as opposed to a Eurocentric lens, which has been typical of museums in the past. And that process has been really fulfilling for the museum team, and we've had some fantastic feedback from that engagement process.
Thank you for clarifying that. And just a subsequent one, probably not a question for you, but I did have a few phone calls following the media release the other day about the karakia and the starting of the work, and the questions that were asked were, where were you? So I don't recall receiving an invitation. Why weren't we there?
So an invitation was sent out on the RLC councillor's email address. We're just checking as to why only Mayor Tapsell appeared to have received it. And so we're just having a look at that. So our apologies, we were a little surprised as well. But
Okay, thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you. Apologies, councillors. Any more questions for Stuart? Yes, Councillor Waru.
Tēnā koe te chairman, doing a good job. Stu, kia ora. My question is around, touching on what Councillor Patterson was just talking about, the design sort of stuff. My understanding was Kyle Leonard's input or contribution was around providing a narrative, and then there was some other works to be done that would fall out of that narrative. Is that still the case? Can you flesh that out for me, please?
Sure, Councillor. So Carl has been involved with the museum exhibition team in terms of creating that cultural narrative for the exhibition, and, you know, that consistency, that voice all the way through. And so, you know, we've been taking his advice. He's been engaging also with Workshop E, also picking up on Kyle's experience and knowledge, and that's been fed into that concept design process, as well as all the other feedback from all the hapua iwi that we've visited, as well as local community groups as well. So it's a significant piece of engagement, and I'd probably say the most detailed of any regional museum in the country.
Kia ora. Could I just ask that, you know, during that process, don't forget to talk to Wairiki Spatu, because so then the narratives can complement each other on their whenua. That's all I'll say. Kia ora.
Thank you, Councillor Waru. Any further questions, councillors? There don't appear to be any. Thank you, Stuart, for your time, and it's great to see it all laid out for us like this, and we look forward to seeing further updates as we go forward with the build. All the best. Thank you. I'd like to now, councillors, to move on to item...
Sorry, Madam Chair,
yes,
if you'd indulge me, I have just quickly checked, and there was an invitation that I'm looking at that appears to have been sent out to all the councillors, but we will double check. So it came from Kathy, and it was the actual invitation. So it may have looked different to what you were expecting, but
What date was that, Madam Chair?
Wednesday, 26.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mayor Tapsell. Cheers for clarifying that. Right, we'll move on to item 7, councillors. This is on page 12 of your agenda. This is the progress report. Could I have a mover and a seconder that the progress report for infrastructure and environment be received, please? It's Councillor Brown, seconded by Councillor Kai Fong. All those in favour, please say aye. All those against? That is carried. I'd like to welcome Russell George, who hopefully by now you have all met. He is standing beside Stavros's role while Stavros is away, and obviously Rob you know. So welcome to you both, and I'll leave you to overview your report.
Thank you, Chair. Really take the report as read and will answer any questions.
Thank you, Russell. Councillors, do you have any questions on the report? I'll give you time to get to the page. Yes, Councillor O'Brien.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Thank you very much for your report, Russell. Russell, I just got a couple of questions. First one on page 6 of my agenda. Sorry, I'm not sure. It's under the resource consent renewals for the water supply.
Yeah.
Could I just draw your attention and ask for a bit more around the last comment in that particular section? It says, such MOU will include anticipated future costs that are currently not included in the LTP. Could you expand on that for me a little bit, please?
Yep. So through the Chair, because the MOU has not been signed and because we don't have a resource consent, we don't know what sorts of things are going to be in the MOU or what conditions will be part of the resource consent. So that's what that refers to. Until we know what those are, we won't know what that's going to cost.
So sorry, so can I ask, when you say it's not in the LTP, has money still been put aside in case of?
Money's been put aside, but we don't know all of the conditions of what the resource consent will be.
Okay, thank you. And my second one was, please, on also on page 6, in regards to the comprehensive stormwater consents. If I can quote here, RLC was granted an extension, but not as long as you would have liked, etc. So could I ask, what did you seek? What was the time frame you sought? What was given? Yep. And what are the associated risks with that, with the differential? Like how substantial, in your opinion, are the risks? Thank you.
So through the chair again, I know the hearing's in November. I don't know what was requested originally, but we're working towards that November hearing. Yeah, sorry, that's as far as my knowledge goes.
Okay, so sorry, so just again reading what's here. So RLC was granted an extension, but less than requested.
Yes.
And you're not able to tell me what that was?
I know we've been given an extension till November. I don't know what was originally requested, sorry.
Okay, so second part of that, are you able to expand on what are the risks with that differential?
It just means a more compressed time frame in terms of working with stakeholders around getting that application in.
Right, and can I ask, are we confident that we can meet that time frame?
Working towards that, I'm fairly confident, yes. Yep.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, sorry.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Through you, Councillor O'Brien, your questions around risk are absolutely valid. We will come back to you on the original timeframe requested. Sorry, we don't have that information on hand at the moment. And we'll update you on the risks associated with that. What I will say is that we are working quite closely with the Bay of Plenty Regional Council to track progress towards that date. And at this point, the last update I've got is that we are on track. If that changes, we'll certainly give you an update.
Thank you, Andrew, and we'll capture that as an action point to get back to you with that information. Thank you. Councillor Brown?
Thank you, Madam Chair. Page 20, the rainstorm event on May 21, photos illustrate reasonable amount of flooding. Do we know how much rain we received and over how long?
I don't have the data on the actual rainfall, but it was a very high amount in a short period of time that caused the issue.
Okay. Rob, you?
Through you, Madam Chair. Yes, it was a significant event. It was high in the catchments, which was the interesting thing. That it produced quite a bit of sort of upper catchment infilling with less awareness down lower in the caldera. The Regional Council were tracking it. We can get the information on that intensity. We don't have it at hand.
Okay. So, subsequent, Madam Chair, if I may. Really, my concern is, and I'm sure this rain event, while it was substantial, it was probably not anywhere near Gabriel, the cyclone Gabriel. I just wonder whether we are doing everything we can to mitigate flooding of these sorts of natures. Regional Council and Rotorua Lakes Council is doing all the work that we can to mitigate these sorts of events. Can we get some assurance around that, perhaps?
Yeah, so this underlines the importance of the stormwater work that's been done. Also, as a result of the 2018 floods, especially in the Nongataha area, there was some work identified and there's been some modelling done on the water flows since then. So the Regional Council, they've got a southern bypass floodway that they're working on with the MP showgrounds, and they're hoping to start that work in about October.
Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Brown. Councillor Patterson?
Thank you, Madam Chair. Thank you for your report. Just got a couple of questions with regards to consultation with mana whenua. Page 18 of the agenda, which is page 6 of your report, under resource consent for water supply takes, under the heading Progress. Council is working with mana whenua on the Karamu Takina water source, which is about 40% of our central water supplies, catering for about 42,500 residents. What consultation has been done about the planned fluoridation of their supply, and what was their feedback?
Through Chair, I'm not aware of any consultation around fluoridation because it's not a council decision. It's a directive from the Ministry of Health, who have the Director General of Health has the decision-making powers there.
So we as partners don't have a responsibility to let them know what we're doing, regardless of who's asking us to do that?
We will be talking to them around that, but that's all part of this MOU work.
Right. So I guess that answers my next question, which was about the comprehensive stormwater resource consents. I guess they'll be told about the potential runoff situation with the addition of fluoride to that water. They will be told about that too?
Councillor, there was something that needed to be added around that. I think the directive is from government, and so they're responsible for communicating how this is going to be rolled out. Is there anything further that CE might want to add around that? I don't know. No, there's nothing much to add about that, but I'm sure that what Russell said is what will be happening with regards to letting people know.
I have one more question that's with your indulgence. Page 24, Water Quality Council's Stormwater Bylaw and Bay of Plenty Regional Council's Natural Resources Plan limit, do not allow contaminants exceeding permitted levels to be discharged into urban waterways. So can you clarify what's designated as a contaminant and how permitted levels are determined, please?
So I don't have all the detail on levels and the contaminants, but I can get that for you. But there is certain contaminants and there will be certain levels that are deemed acceptable and not acceptable.
Right. Thank you very much.
Councillor, there might be further information that the CE can provide on that.
Thank you, Madam Chair. So just so that I understand the question and take away the appropriate action, is the councillor seeking a definition of the word contaminant in regard and levels in regard to what we are permitted to discharge into the...
Yes, I would like to know what is designated a contaminant, what type of contaminants we look for, and what are the acceptable levels of those before they are allowed to be discharged into our lake.
We will take that as an action to provide it where we have it. Thank you.
Thank you. And is page 27 still part of this report? I think it is.
Yes, Councillor, it is.
I think it is, isn't it? Sorry, just a question for you, Rob, if you wouldn't mind. Sports fields renovations. The stadium number 1 field is being worked on in preparation for later winter games. So 14th of August is the Steamers game. It's only 5 weeks away. Are we going to be ready for that?
Yes, I've talked to the team. I did actually ask them when the first Steamers game was, expecting this question, and they've told me that yes, it will be ready for the Steamers game.
Fantastic, thank you.
Councillor Kaifong, you have a question?
Thank you, Chair. It's on page 4 of the report around the Piggott block development, water and wastewater. And not necessarily probably a question that you may be able to answer, but we agreed to proceed with this work in tandem with the development proceeding. So I'm just really wanting an update to ensure that the development is actually on track and leases and buildings are happening, because I don't really want to have us installing pipes to nowhere or for no reason.
Chair, I don't have an update on their development other than conversations with them around whether council would be interested in being a tenant, but nothing further than that.
Thank you, Russell. It's probably not a question you're able to answer.
Perhaps it's a question I can put to JP when we have the CDD meeting next week.
I just noticed he's not sitting there to ask the question directly. Sorry, Councillor.
Thank you.
Councillor Waru, you had a question?
Kia ora te tiamana. Kia ora koutou. I'm just asking a couple of questions. The other one was the percentage of our drinking water supply. How many, I suppose, what does the iwi contribute in terms of percentage-wise in the overall drinking water supply for the district?
I don't have a percentage, but a number of the supplies are coming from iwi land. Yeah.
Kapai, thank you for that. Second question I had was and I'm wondering, you did mention it, I am a resident out in Ngongotaha there, and I know those photos were taken at the Fort West Park. But just wondering, you spoke there are some mitigations being sort of designed. Are you able to explain a couple of those mitigations that might be in place?
Some of the work that Council's been doing is putting some floodgates on some of the stormwater outlets. But the major one I referred to, the Southern Bypass Floodway, that's to bypass the floodwaters through the AMP showgrounds to stop it going across Western Road and into the Pioneer subdivision.
It's greatly appreciated because I live on Pioneer Road. Do you have something to add, Rob?
Yes, if I could just add, our Open Spaces team has been working with the Regional Council on tree clearance down the river channel as well. So there's been a significant amount of willows and things like that have been removed. There is also some work on another bypass lower down below the Ngongotaha Bridge through the Domain. And there is a middle bypass just cutting off one of the very sharp corners that's behind the subdivision off Western Road. There's another one there. So there's a number of areas where they've created flood channels to enable the water to exit more speedily.
Thank you. I did have another question, but it's kind of slipped my mind at the moment, so I'll hand it over. Kia ora.
Kia ora. Councillor Lee, you have a question?
Thank you, Madam Chair. Page 16 of your report refers to the Victoria Street to wastewater treatment plant sewer main upgrade. That's 3/4 of the way down the page. On the right-hand side under progress, it says proposed sewer alignment through Sanatorium Reserve not supported by iwi. Section 1 from Victoria Street to Marist Park can be progressed now. Alignment options for second section being evaluated and will be presented to iwi. The agreed route will then be taken to detailed design. Which iwi?
Sorry, I don't know.
Okay, so that's pretty vague reference there. It's
a gifted reserve, eh?
The appropriate.
It will be the people that need to be considered with regards to the land. Is there further questions?
I presume it's a gifted reserve with Ngāti Whakaui, so I'm guessing then that it's probably the Ngāti Whakaui gifted reserve. So that would protocol committee. So is this a decision
Councillor
of that?
Lee, have you got a question
Is
regarding
this a decision of the protocol committee, the Ngāti Whakaui Gifted Reserves Protocol Committee?
Can I answer that, Madam Chair?
Yes, please.
So the decision on the alignment of an infrastructure project will be taken by the appropriate infrastructure team member delegated to make that decision. We consider input from various elements of the community, and in this case, the progress report has identified the progress of that engagement and it will be considered as part of the overall decision around the alignment of the infrastructure work.
My concern is we don't have any public accountability for this decision making through this, so we don't know who's making having this input into the
point of order. I think we're talking about something other than the report.
We're talking about the report, page 16.
Councillor Lee, we'll just leave this item, that question now, because it's been explained by the CE, the process that was gone through when decisions are made around where infrastructure is put. There's various considerations that are made when we're doing that kind of work, and that has been explained. Is there anything else that you'd like to ask about, please?
No, that's sufficient. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Maxwell?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Page 21. I won't read it all out there. You have a look on there where it says about the water supplies. Rotorua has the best tasting public water in the country. Can you, other than being so humble and proud that we all are, what are some of the things we're doing to tell the Aotearoa and tell the world about it, you know? Is this something for Rotorua New Zealand or, you know, every one of us somehow should be telling the rest of the country we got the best water. Look, and we're trying to build Rotorua's reputation back up. What a good way of doing it. So we could come up with some good ideas somewhere.
Yeah, thank you. I might let the CE answer that question, but it's part of a process that happens as analysis of 19 other water supplies by Axiom. But yeah, Andrew, you might have looked.
I was just going to say that through the chair that I'd be very happy to discuss including that into the SOI for Rotorua NZ to include promotion and marketing of our excellent water.
Yes, put it on the All Blacks jerseys or the Warriors jerseys or something.
Thank you, Councillor. Is there any other questions for the team? Yes, Councillor O'Brien.
Thank you, Madam Chair. If no one else has any questions, I'd just like to add appreciation. I see that Linda Johnston has left Civil Defence and she's done a sterling amount of work over a very long period of time. So I'd just like to record my appreciation for her in that role while she was there. She's done a fantastic amount of work, very tough work at times, and she's achieved so much in that area. So we all owe her a very big debt of thanks. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor O'Brien, for raising it and acknowledging her contribution to the organisation and to our civil defence management. I'm sure the staff will take that back to her. Thank you. And along those lines, I'd actually just like to acknowledge the team again. I see that the audit that was done by Bay of Plenty CDM was, well, we did well on that, and I just want to acknowledge the staff's efforts on that as well. Thank you. Is there any other questions for the staff? That appears to be all. Thank you very much for your time and the answers to our questions, team. We now are at a point where we're on to the next item, which requires us...
Excuse me, Madam Chair.
Yes, Councillor Lee.
Would I just be able to seek a point of clarification before we move into confidential?
Yes.
Just really for the Chief Executive, I think the notice of motion that's been declined and the assessment of it, could that please be made available on the council website in the for interest?
Councillors, we're just having a discussion about how the best way to go about doing that is, because we are always keen to have transparency in what we do, as you say. So probably what will happen is that we'll capture it as part of the minutes rather than putting it on the council website. There isn't really a dedicated space for it to go on the website. So that's probably the approach that we'll take with this, since it was raised amongst the beginning of our business today. Does that answer your question?
Yes. The other place that was possible, I suppose, would be together with the agenda.
No, it didn't make it to the agenda. Yep. That's why it wasn't actually on the agenda, is because it was refused as an item. So, but it was part of the discussion at the beginning, so that's where it will sit as a record for the community.
And one final point: has the contract for the procurement of the equipment been let at this point?
Has it been, sorry? Has
it been let out to the vendor?
I will check with the CE on that matter. Just one moment.
Mm-hmm. Through you, Madam Chair, both the instructions to me at the last council meeting to sign both contracts has been carried out.
Thank you.
And has the vendor been advised?
Sorry, it hasn't been.
Has the vendor been advised?
Point of order on irrelevance. You know, we've dealt with the business today, and we're moving into confidential now. Can we please move on with the council business?
Thank you, Councillor Wang. And I take that on board. That's part of an operational matter now that yeah, so it's actually part of the CE's purvey now. So yes, we'll move on, I think.
That's a stern no reply. Okay, thank you.
So moving on now to item 8, which is a resolution to move into public excluded. This is on page 29 of your agenda, councillors. There are 2 items for consideration today if we move into public excluded, and they are the confidential minutes of the Infrastructure and Environment Committee meeting held on the 5th of June, and also the contract 23/001 Organic Services Contract Commencement Report. The reasons for passing this resolution would be to the withholding of the information is necessary to protect information where the making available of the information would likely unreasonably prejudice the commercial position of the person who supplied or who is the subject of the information, and also the withholding of information is necessary to enable council to carry out without prejudice or disadvantage commercial activities. Would someone please move that the Infrastructure and Environment Committee resolves to exclude the public on the grounds contained in section 48/1 of the Local Government Official Information and Meetings Act, please. That is moved by Councillor Waru and seconded by Councillor Kai Fong. All those in favour, please say aye. Aye. And against? That is carried. Thank you. This is an opportunity, councillors, to have a